All right, what is up, Live Reality Games? It is Dom again for the last time this season of Survivor Grand Rapids Fresh Meat. We are here to discuss the finale, part 2, with our final 3. But of course, we are joined with Drew. Drew, how are you doing? It's been about a week since we've seen each other. No new episode. We're just recapping the 2-hour epic finale that happened about a week and a half ago.
Yes, I'm excited to be here and talk to the final 3. This week off has given me time to rewatch the finale, do some analysis of gameplay, and I'm ready to talk about it.
How before we bring in our final 3, how can we say a little something about them? What was your thoughts on our final 3 before we start the podcast?
We'll definitely get into this with them, but I think that this is definitely one of the rare occasions where the best 3 players of the season made it to final 3. So I'm excited to break down the games and talk about the successes and failures of the final 3.
I think this is one of our strongest final 3s we have ever had in our series that we've done, and arguably maybe the game of Survivor. So I'm excited to kind of like just speak with all of them. So without further ado, spoilers ahead for those who have not watched the finale. It's 2 hours, so you can strap in and grab a bowl of popcorn for that. But without further ado, spoilers will be ahead. We are going to bring in the first runner-up of our final 3, getting 3rd place on Survivor Grand Rapids.
Wouldn't that be second runner-up?
Second runner-up. Well, I guess the first runner-up to the second runner-up. You know what I mean. Without further ado, welcome Sydney, please. Sydney, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing good.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to be here. How are you feeling since playing? What have you been up to? Like, what's Sydney doing? What was it like watching it back?
It was so much fun. It was fun because there was a big contingency of us in Detroit too. So it was just a fun thing to look forward to every Wednesday. And then we would watch it all together, but I would always watch it again the next day because I wanted to hear every detail of it. So that occupied some of my work hours.
Well, you certainly gave us a great season. I know Drew has been hyping you up a little bit. You racked up a couple power player points as well throughout the season. So congratulations. We'll dive a little bit deeper into that. But our first runner-up and the second person that we'll be bringing in and the second place person of this season and another fellow member of the Detroit gang, Ryan. Ryan, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Hey, everybody. Doing good. Good to be here.
How have you been since the finale? I know you lost by 2 votes. Little rough loss. What was it like watching the season back and seeing all of your epic moments?
That was awesome, man. I loved comparing what I thought happened to what actually happened and seeing everybody how they play it, how they played. It was a lot of fun watching it back.
Well, it will be fun recapping it because I'm sure there's a lot of stuff to spill in only so little time. So without further ado, let us bring in the reigning champion of Survivor Dearborn Grand Rapids Series, Juliana. Juliana, how you doing?
Hi, everyone. It's good to see everybody. I'm doing great. It was a lot of fun watching that back, and I definitely didn't remember a lot of it. So I agree with Ryan. It was fun to think about what I thought happened versus what actually happened. And I don't know. It's crazy we're here. Just, chatting about it now that it's all out there. It was really tough to keep it a secret from my friends who knew I was playing. And I came back and, would be like, oh, it was a really great time. We had to stay really late because Matt was on camera crew, but tried not to give anything away.
So it was, we are here not just with our final 3, but 3 of our significant others of Survivor Dearborn lore. Juliana is Matt's fiance from seasons 1, 3, and 4. Sydney is Charlie's girlfriend from seasons 2 and 4. And Ryan is the boyfriend of Alyssa from seasons 1, 3, and 4. So this is really epic, a truly special kind of coming together and, bookend to a lot of our friends' beginnings in this series all the way to now. And I'm so excited to kind of dive deep and kind of go more into that. Before we really do, I just kind of want to dispel some rumors from some comment section, because some people are really talking about how oh, it's a coincidence that all 3 people were conspiring with some people that have played before.
Yeah, so, Dom, I can't believe you rigged your season.
I know, it just kind of ended up this way that everybody is here, but everybody on this podcast besides me and Drew targeted each other at some point in the game. So I'm excited to dispel these rumors, move forward, and maybe not focus a little too much on our previous people. They had their time. We'll see if they come back for a Legends season. But for now, it's your guys' story. Let's start with the recap and moving forward. So all of you guys were cast on kind of a special way. You guys were some of the first people that I cast. I know the range of Survivor knowledge really kind of varied between all of you guys. So I kind of want to dive in and see where your guys' head was at, starting. So Sydney, what was your head at the beginning of the game before, even stepping foot onto the mat?
I had watched some Survivor when I was younger, like a kid living at home. But I mean, I probably haven't watched Survivor in 10 years. So there was no fresh strategy in my mind. I didn't really remember what people were doing. But I mean, I had a general understanding of how the game went. I thought I just wanted to not get out super early. That was my only goal. So that's pretty much where my head was at the start.
Nice. Well, you came in. I remember you sat down for your pregame interview and you said your family was a big fan. What was it like for your family being able to watch the season back, if they did?
They have loved it. They're happy I'm in it, but they're just so impressed with the quality and the production and just how intense it is. When I told them about it, they had no idea what I was getting into. And so for them to just watch the first couple of episodes and see it is so funny. And yeah, I've just loved hearing what they thought about each episode.
I'm sure this is a question that I'm going to have for each of the three of you, but being in relationships with past players who played Dearborn, what was that preparation like as far as how they helped prepare you?
Me and Charlie just watched a couple of episodes of Survivor Dearborn. We didn't really talk about it all that much or prepare.
You should check out season 2 with Charlie. That's a really good
one. He's told me that I should not watch that one.
Well, yep, we can. It was a fantastic job, Sydney. And I think your mindset going in, was just knowing a little bit about it, but being open and rolling with the punches, it really was evident. But you made a lot of really good moves throughout the game, which we will dive into. Ryan, what about you? I know you kind of mentioned that you watched it a little bit and your family was a little bit into it. What was your mindset entering this game?
Yeah, so similar to Sydney, I watched it with my parents a long time ago when I was a kid. Didn't really remember much from it. And then I had a friend in college who was a big Survivor fan. Might have to wait for the next season to see him. But yeah, not really a huge Survivor fan. I didn't know much about it. I didn't really watch much of Survivor Dearborn, contrary to what I said in the show. I was on brand. I was lying. Alyssa didn't really show me much. So I kind of came into it. I had a general understanding of the strategy. You don't want to come off as too much of a threat from the beginning and just kind of use your people skills. And I knew the basics of the game. I just wasn't really an expert.
So the all Terminator Ryan was just kind of raw Ryan, right?
That's just me.
Nice.
No, I'm just kidding. I knew enough to put on a show and play my character. I knew. Well, we'll get into it, but
yeah, it was quite entertaining. So I mean, you did put on a show with the little bit of Survivor knowledge that you had, and even the least amount of preparation Alyssa probably could have given for you. You did the best that you could, and you put on a show. That was, I mean, it was one of the closest final tribals that we had, ever. And so it was well deserved, and you adapted very well. Juliana, the one who came out on top, did you learn anything? What was your mindset coming in from, whether Matt prepped you or not? What was your mindset?
Well, it's funny that both Sydney and Ryan watched Survivor with their parents. I would be curious to see how many of the other competitors' parents watched, because my parents watched it when I was little, and they would be like, "You're not allowed to watch. This is the camping show." And so but I don't know, maybe it's something about all of our parents' personalities collectively that's similar. But during COVID, my housemates and I watched a lot of Survivor, and then we kind of just kept it up. Matt and I would watch just random seasons, and we watched season 40 and season 41. And those are the most recent seasons I'd
I'm
watched.
sorry for your loss.
Wait, what?
I'm sorry. I hate those seasons. Sorry.
No, no, they were not. The earlier seasons are much better, but I knew enough to know that like if you came on like too strong, too fast, you were probably going to go out early merge because you would make it through team challenges and people wouldn't want you out because you're a strong individual. But then if you were too obvious, you were probably going to go early merge. And I thought that was what I was like really consciously trying to avoid, was that like the competitive level that I can get to is like probably a lot higher than what I think I showed. But I think that was more intentional than I realized, because I knew going into it that like if I allowed myself to become like that side of me, it would be game over for me quicker than I wanted it to be. And I think I've played three drinking versions. And I learned that lesson enough, like in the drinking versions, to know I needed to avoid it. And, you know, without alcohol involved, I think that made a difference.
It did, I would say. Whether it was the, I mean, you might have, paced yourself a little bit on the summer shandies on your rewards, but I think it did make a difference, especially with a 3-day version. You guys were all able to really stretch out your games a little bit and have it a more developed. And that's something different that we see a lot from the 1-day versions that we have run, especially with alcohol involved, and seeing everybody's games that has played transcode, I guess, I don't know if that's a word, into this version. It's been a blast to see. But without further ado, I want to jump right into talking about the game and how everything started out. Juliana and Ryan, you guys were on the Ionia tribe, the Blue Ionia tribe. And guys, I'll get to you guys in a little bit. I mean, you guys were kind of boring a little bit. You guys didn't have much going on.
I
Just kept
disagree.
winning.
Not boring. I mean, like, you guys, there's moves being made. However, you guys just kept winning. And before we get into the moves being made, let's get into somebody who had to make moves the entire game, who attended every single tribal council but one this entire season. Sydney, you were on Cascade from the jump. You lost almost every challenge except the tug of war one. What was it like, at least on day one, with that constant losing for you?
It was not a big deal at first. Like at first it was kind of inspiring, like we'll get the next one. And then it just kept happening. And it was so depressing, but I felt like I formed a little like group with some of the people. And so it was not like too difficult, because I feel like we were pretty aligned each vote with like who to vote out for the most part. So it was depressing, and it just made me really want to get to the merge and start working with like some other people and get things going.
Do you think? Go ahead, Joe.
I think looking at the early episodes, the pre-swap episodes, one thing that really stuck out to me was how you, compared to a lot of the other people on your tribe, set your you started your social game. We see, kind of early on, a few episodes in, you established this thing with Bridget and Tom. You're in the know about a lot of things going on, while a lot of the other people like Addison and Liam are making themselves huge targets, whereas you're involved in a lot of conversations. So that's what I noticed about your early game, and I think you played that social game early on very well.
Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was just about to say, you survived that whole pre-merge without your name even coming up once, despite constantly losing. So you were doing something right. Meanwhile, over at Ionia, despite winning, you guys were in a state of chaos, deciding, are we boys versus girls? Are we not boys versus girls? What's Kyle doing? Who has an idol? And the man who held the idol the entire time was Ryan. Ryan, we saw you kind of have a little bit of an alliance with Mark and Taylor. You hung them out to dry, like almost immediately, like during a swap. But early on day one, what was it like? What was your mindset like with that alliance? Did you view them as like a placeholder? Did you just kind of use that as like a stepping stone?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to be allied with Mark and Taylor. I mean, I thought we had a good thing going. They helped get the idol. I did view that idol as somewhat of a shared between the three of us. Obviously, I would use it for myself over any of those two.
Yeah.
I was going to say it wasn't shared when it was asked to be shared.
Yeah. Well, when Mark asked for it, I kind of realized what kind of situation he was in, and I figured if I gave him the idol, it was inevitable that he would.
It was just a 1-vote pass. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did consider it, but if he was in that much trouble, then that would be a bad play for me. But yeah, I thought we had a good thing going, and we really did have a good alliance in the beginning. That kind of faded away as things developed. I think I had a better alliance with Jen. Out of the original Ionia, that was my strongest alliance for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and on the opposite end, Juliana, you seem to have been very ingrained in the girls' alliance, quote unquote, and not really talking to a ton of people. We saw a little bit of talk about who you might want to work with, whether it be Spencer, whether it be Ryan. What was your mindset at day one, prior to Hannah maybe being voted out?
I think I had the time to like put the feelers out of like who like we had the time because we won. I just kind of was observing. Like that's what I was doing that whole first day. And so it didn't really seem like I was doing a lot, but I was just trying to pay attention to like who was teaming up with somebody that I like had already established I didn't trust for one reason or another. And so I was like really wary of those relationships. And I had really very little conversation with the guys that were there. I remember though, like setting up my like hammock for the night, and Spencer was helping me, and I was like, yeah, I want to work with Spencer. He seems like he's going to be a really strategic person, which he was. And so I know we'll get to the rest of that later, but I wanted to work with him. I just felt like it was really hard for me to like break into whatever this set of guys were doing, plus Taylor. And so I remember like sitting on the porch, and all of the talk about Ryan's idol was happening, and Taylor like flat out lied to me about like, I don't even remember what she lied to me about, but it was like the way in which Ryan got the idol. And I was like, you're joking. Like I literally watched Ryan pick it up and thought I was the only one that saw it. Like I knew it from the very beginning as soon as he opened the bag, because I had like quickly enough read the clue from over Zoe's shoulder, like at the very beginning. So I knew to look for it. And so like at that moment I decided like I can't trust Taylor, and she's aligning with the boys, which is why I really like reeled back in and was like, okay, like I'll do what I can with these girls. I also know that I'm a like strong team competitor, so I had hoped that would like help me help others like kind of want to keep me around. So I think that's what I was kind of doing. And then the Hannah like vote out situation kind of worked in my favor because there were girls' names out there and mine was one of them. And so that was unfortunate. And Hannah is definitely someone in my book that deserves a second chance on Survivor Grand Rapids. But that definitely helped me just like get through the first day.
Yeah, rewatching those early episodes, it's pretty obvious to me that you were sitting back and observing and putting feelers out. There were a lot of conversations that you were involved in where people would ask your opinion on things, and you just be like, yeah, that's fine. Whatever the group wants to do, which I think is how you have to play the early game. So I think you did a great job with that.
I think all three of you were especially in my book, like, I mean, even going into the season, I pictured all three of you making merge. I think Juliana was my winner pick in the preseason. So
wow,
it's a check on my book. I feel like just also clarifying, this is further evidence. You can't use this at me that this is rigged or anything. This was all hearsay. But yeah, you guys were all in a really good spot. And then we swapped and we saw a little bit of a shakeup. Sydney, you joined Juliana on the new Ionia. Ryan, you are out on your own, at least in this final three. On the new Cascade, you still had Jen to work with, and you had Taylor on your side as well. You linked up with your fellow tall man, Liam. And it kind of, we didn't really get to see a lot of camp life there. So I'm hoping that you'd be able to fill us in a little bit on what the vibe of Cascade was like, the new Cascade a little bit, if you want to share the tribe dynamics a little bit.
Sure, yeah. I thought it was pretty similar to the old Ionia. Everyone was pretty comfortable. I don't think coming into it, we had Liam and I think I don't know who, I can't remember who else honestly, but we just kind of thought we would not lose any challenges, and we didn't really lose that much. We lost one, I think.
Yeah.
So again, it was kind of similar. We didn't have to really worry about vote outs too much, and it was when we got to the Taylor vote, I think it was a general consensus to stay strong and vote out a weaker player. I think I should have pushed to keep Taylor, but I didn't, like Juliana said, I didn't want to rustle any feathers that early, and I just kind of went with it.
Yeah, the question that I want to kind of talk about before we kind of move on to New Ionia, and I'm sure it's on a lot of people's minds because even rewatching it, you see a lot of talk just about how close you and Liam are and how
Right.
you know, much you guys were probably going to work together, and like it's scary to have two guys, you know, super tall on the other tribe and going against them. Yet you guys, you know, seem to have this like understanding of like, hey, like we need to look out for each other, but it never seemed like you guys were fully in, you know, line for the game. Could you kind of go into your, you know, read on Ryan or on Liam and, you know, talk a little bit about your dynamic in the game and, you know, maybe what eventually led to Liam's demise?
Sure. So we got coming into the game. We didn't talk about anything or pledge allegiance to each other, but once we got on the same red tribe, we talked and we were like, yeah, we're big targets. We got to watch each other's back. But I know Liam, and I know he's strong. He's smart. You know, I thought my biggest competition, and I really did think he was gonna, like, if he stays in the game, I don't think I could trust him, and I could see him taking him out easily. So while we kind of mutually agreed to watch out for each other, I didn't trust it, and I think that's why, like, first vote, I really pushed for getting Liam out.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this game typically, at least in Survivor Dearborn, there's been a lot of like, you know, pre-game, not, I wouldn't say alliances, but pre-game relationships that you really get to see. And I feel like this season we were able to see them kind of fleshed out a little bit, but also nobody was directly working with, you know, people that they knew. Everybody was trying to spice it up a little bit. And Juliana and Sydney, we saw that you guys on New Ionia, like, I mean, obviously you two have like met before the game, but like you guys were still a little bit, I wouldn't say at odds, but like it seemed like you were building an in-game relationship that was different from your out-of-game relationship. Sydney, going over to New Ionia, you had a really interesting comment that you were more happy being on this new Ionia tribe where it was 4v4 compared to the 5v3 split on the other tribe. And it seemed to really turn around for you because, you know, Kyle flipped immediately and then you seemed to have Juliana. Did you view it as kind of like as cut and dry as it turned out to be, you know, or not as cut and dry, but did you view it to be a little bit more socially interesting to navigate throughout that pre-merge section or the post-swap section?
Yeah, because I could not like have seen myself voting out Bridget, Tom, or Addison, even though like I know I ended up like kind of changing my mind when we first got those teams. I mean, those were the three people that I felt closest to on like the red tribe. So I was very happy to be with them. And so, I mean, I kind of thought we would like go after the old blue tribe. And so it was, yeah, kind of interesting to see like starting out, like who would flip. It was going to be one of us or one of them. But I felt like the four of us were really pretty solid together, at least at the beginning of the tribe merge.
I think one of my favorite moments in the season is this like brief little montage Dom put in of like, obviously the four of you guys are working together, like it's obvious, and then like each of you go up to somebody different on blue, original blue, and you're like, yeah, we were just like block voting, like we didn't have any alliances at all, like we're all just like individuals. I thought that was really fun. I think you guys played that very well and were able to stick together through that section.
Yeah, well, and I feel like it's kind of true because like the block voting, it did make it so that we all kind of were aligned together. Like I probably would have felt the same way if Liam or Claire or like them were on the team too. So yeah, I don't know.
I think I actually talked to Tom about this like one-on-one the last time I was in Detroit. And he's like, yeah, like we had alliances like all the time. Like, I don't know why you keep saying we're block voting. I think it's really interesting. And I want to talk to Juliana about this, but I would say like you had maybe like one or two people that like that was your go-to to like kind of talk to, but you didn't have like a big like 5-person like solidified alliance moving forward. And that's, I think, a difference that we've seen in our past seasons and where we're at right now. And I think, Sydney, at this point in the game, I think this is where you honestly like came into like, full survivor mode. Like you ran votes, like you ran the post swap. Juliana was kind of like, at your, like, I wouldn't say at like fully doing your plans, but like you guys, it seemed like you would come with it and like you two would workshop it together. That's at least at that point in the game. And I feel like that gave you the juice to kind of get through day 2, at least from my perspective. Juliana, on the opposite side of that, you came in and you saw Kyle immediately flip he's basically straight up told you he was voting with Addison. What was it like navigating that post swap for you?
Yeah, it was an interesting swap because Zoe was around, but Jen held me and Zoe together, and Jen was gone. So I wasn't like, I trusted Zoe, and we had like a really, fun little friendship in the game forming and stuff. And I would love to hang out with Zoe, like outside of it. She was so great. But like if she and I were to stick together, I had a really tumultuous relationship with Mark. And Kyle, I did not trust whatsoever. So I really had a hard time. And then as soon as we joined like groups, I immediately clicked with obviously I know sitting outside the game, but I knew I would click with her in the game. I immediately clicked with Bridget, and I immediately clicked with Addison. So at that point, I kind of picked up on the fact that they also clicked with each other. And so that group of 3 was way smarter for me to stick with than maybe Zoe, who could flip on me and I wasn't, I wouldn't have known. Like, just, I think my intuition took over maybe more than like what my like reading the room abilities were, just because I was doing what I needed to kind of keep myself in the game.
As tragic as losing Zoe, as early on as we did is, I do think that was one of the better moves that you had done.
I agree.
Being on the outs, it was sad, but it had to be done. Sacrificial lamb for Juliana's game, I would say. Closing out this like post swap portion from everybody, we have somebody from the comments that's asking, in 30 seconds or less, who was the one that got away for each person in the pre-merge? Who did you kind of want to work with throughout the game, whether it was pre-swap or post-swap, who was the one that you wanted to, maybe play a little bit further with the game?
I definitely think Zoe's my answer for that one. I think we would have gone along like really great and could have been like a little duo that just always circled back to each other.
Nice. What about you, Ryan?
I actually think it would have been Mark. I wish he was a little more low-key, and I knew he's a smart player, a good player. He got such a big target on his back, and if he slipped through that, I think we could have made a run and done pretty well together.
I fear a Mark and Ryan merge.
Freshman
year. If Mark survived that swap, I fear what would happen at the merge for everybody else in the game.
It'd be good TV for sure.
Good TV.
Sydney, what about you? Who's your one that got away?
I would say Hannah. Even though she went out super early, when we met, I just thought she was so nice, and we had like a little Deloitte connection, and she knew so many people in the game. And so I think that would have been like a really fun person to play with, and could have been really beneficial. And yeah, I just thought she was super nice.
Mm-hmm. Pre-game, I think I had a final 3 guess of you, Juliana, and Hannah just running the game. That was my pre-merge guess, or the pre-game guess. But Hannah's back. She's doing okay. She wanted me to tell everybody, actually, she's doing okay. Her back is better than ever. Just have to maybe watch it on the tire challenges next time.
Yeah.
Moving on into our merge section, we have a lot to talk about. So I'm going to try to make this as concise as possible. I feel like we started off strong with Juliana coming in with a plan to, flush Ryan's idol and, do all this fun stuff with, flushing and scaring Addison and all that stuff. And it comes crumbling down once Ryan wins immunity. Ryan, what was it like going into the merge? I feel like, did you recognize the target that you had going into the merge, or were you just kind of playing adaptive at that point?
I mean, I realized I was a strong player, and I knew people would be gunning for me. I don't think I realized how much of a target I had until the next vote with Jen. But I had some intel. I knew people were coming for me. Jen, of course, told me about Juliana's plan, so I knew I had people going after me. So yeah, I realized I was a big target.
So when it came to immunities, did you kind of go in with like this? I want to get into your headspace because I feel like this is an obvious question, but you played the game, just balls to the wall all the time. Did you go into these immunities as if I have to win this, or like, I have an idol as for safekeeping just in case? Like, what was your mindset, especially on day 2 going into the immunity challenges?
Yeah, so with the idol, I knew I could. I didn't think I had to. Or if I lost an immunity challenge, I figured I would have some counterplay and not necessarily would have to use the idol. So I felt pretty safe the whole time I had the idol, and I felt pretty confident reading people and not playing the idol when I didn't, or when I did not. But yeah, once I lost the idol, it was kind of a constant. I was on my heels, and I had to just kind of work in the chaos. And like I said in the show, I tried to plant some seeds and like sway people and like put people under the spotlight and put pressure on them. But yeah, I didn't feel particularly safe ever when I didn't have the idol.
Mm-hmm. On the opposite end, Sydney, you, I believe, only received 2 votes the entire season, one of which was a burn vote from Brendan, and the other one was Claire's final Sydney vote in the final 4. It seemed like your name was never really on the chopping block. Did that feel that way in the merge for you, just looking back?
Yeah, the only time that I was really convinced that I was going to go home was when I went for Ryan or something, and then the next vote I thought he was going to vote for me, and he voted for Bridget instead. And I just remember walking up to him before the vote and, don't vote for me, I'm not the biggest threat. And I was trying to get him to vote for Juliana. But yeah, that was the one time that I was really, really nervous.
It seemed like you were able to maintain that social standing throughout the entire game, honestly. The work that you put in pre-merge and early merge definitely paid off in the end game.
Yeah, I agree. Not a lot of people were even your name wasn't on anybody's radar, and I don't think if it was, anybody would be willing to touch you. And we kind of saw that kind of come with Juliana as well. You guys played a relatively similar game for at least the first half of the merge. Juliana, did you feel also kind of in the, at the end of day 2, we saw you kind of turn up the heat to go for Spencer at the end, but at least for the Liam and Jen votes, how were you feeling?
I think the Liam and Jen votes were obvious votes. I knew Jen had her alliance with Ryan, and so at the time I wasn't working with Ryan, and it made sense to split them up. And we couldn't vote Ryan, so we had to do Jen. And I at that time, I would have preferred to keep Jen. I had worked with Jen a little bit, so you
actually could have voted Jen there. Or you could have voted me on that vote.
Oh, for Jen's vote. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at that point, because people were afraid that, there were so many idols happening, I don't even remember exactly. I was trying to play. That was another time in which I think I was trying to play in a way where I was just observing and I guess establishing social capital with the people that I hadn't, been on a tribe with or were reconnecting with from original Ionia. So I guess to me, those votes weren't personal. Like I never got to work with Liam. And then Jen, it was kind of like, you know, if I advocated for her that early, that was going to put a target on my back. So even though I was like kind of working with her, I made no promises to her. And so I didn't realize all the craziness that was going to happen when we actually voted, because like there was more going on than I realized. So me writing Jen's name down. Wait, did I write Jen's name down? No.
That vote. So that vote. Let's set the scene again.
Yeah.
It was the six people were safe. 6
Mhm.
people were vulnerable. It just so happens both Addison and Ryan with idols were eligible to be voted for. You, Sydney, and Tom were also eligible to be voted for, as well as Jen.
Mhm.
And so the vote ended up happening where Jen received four votes, I believe. Tom received 3. Ryan got 2, and Sydney got 1, maybe. I don't know what my math is on that. And I think Addison got maybe 2.
Okay.
Throw that all in. So
Yeah. So that's what I didn't realize was that like enough people I think then wanted to vote Tom at that point. That had just not circled back to me. So I was just going with kind of the group I had spoken with like at the last couple of minutes.
it was a very, very crazy vote. And before we kind of move on to the next portion, Ryan, that I think cemented yourself as the Terminator, Ryan.
Yep.
Not playing your idol when your name was very evidently out there, where the evidence vote split was going on. I think it's an iconic moment for the series and just like all around. What was your headspace at when you didn't play the idol? Were you at all nervous you were going home?
Yeah, this was a pretty complex one for me. So obviously Jen's my number one ally, and I think she kept telling me about the Tom votes. I honestly didn't think she had them. I think if she told me that Bridget was her sister and like that was a lock vote, I think I would have believed her and probably would have voted for her. I didn't see her pulling the numbers there. And honestly, this point, I remember thinking, like, do I go against her? Do I not? And I think this was like the metamorphosis of my game where
Yep.
I no longer, every ally I have is going to be targeted if I'm not targeted. And I'm going to have to play a unique type of game. I honestly didn't want to play like that, but I realized there I had to do it. And in my calculations, I was probably 70, 80% confident that I had the numbers if I voted on Jen. So I risk it. I realized if I play the idol, go home, I'm next one out probably. So I need that idol as a tool. And I took a gamble. I was pretty confident, but I knew there was a chance I get voted out there.
Ryan, I think this is the point of the season where I started getting really interested in what you were thinking. I constantly wanted more and more Ryan confessionals at this point in the season. I think you played a really great pre-swap in setting up these relationships with the people on your original tribe. And then the swap happened, you kind of go back under the radar a little bit. And then this vote is where you come back out with this really ballsy move not to play your idol. And then every vote following, which we'll get to, you're fighting for your life, either in the immunity challenge with the idol, having to make new allies. This round, every round following this, I was like, okay, I need to know what Ryan's thinking because Ryan's got his gears turning and I want to know what's going on.
Yeah, I wish I did more idols or more confessions. Like I said, I had to get in the chaos and kind of like listen to people. So in hindsight, I wish I gave the TV a little bit more. But
no, I think what we got from you was great. I think you played a super interesting game, and it was really exciting to watch.
I don't think it came to fruition until later in the game, especially in the finale. So for me, editing it, and if you guys remember for the podcast, fans that have been listening to us. Matt was on earlier, and me, Matt, and Drew got into a little bit of a debate on whether Ryan, deserved a spot on the power player rankings for, I believe it was Addison's round that you held the idol. And it got into a little bit of a debate because it seemed as if you were kind of just like going with whoever told you. And at the end of the day, upon seeing like the culmination of the entire season, we were able to see, there was a strategy and there was a social like dominance, to your game, whether, you said it in confessionals or not. You say that you like had all this chaos going on behind the scenes. However, like you would also like your social game was kind of just like being anybody but me, but you did it in such an entertaining way. It didn't matter who was close to you. Like if it was anybody but yourself, you would go for it. And I think that was, a very, very admirable strategy. And I think this was also the turning point to where you kind of get your reputation. I don't want to say like villain reputation just yet. Because I feel like you're kind of like an anti-hero at this point in the game. You're not purposely wronging people. You're just saving your own skin.
Just trying to survive, yeah.
And so I think that was a big turning point. Some people can say not giving Mark the idol was, a villain move, but Mark's a villain, you're a villain, and might cancel each other out. This was like voting Jen out was like your big kind of like, I don't know.
My metamorphosis.
Yep, your metamorphosis. Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that your game and Sydney's game contrast so much at this point because Sydney has laid all this groundwork and Sydney's cruising at this point. She's controlling votes from the top. She's, socially nobody's looking at her as a threat, whereas you're the opposite. And now every vote moving forward, you're having to fight up until the last second to keep your name out of people's mouths. And then moving on to Juliana, which we'll get to. I think you balanced both of those very well, which might be why you're the winner of the season. But I think you played such a good middling game between, I'm leading these strategic conversations. I'm playing the social game as well. I'm competing in challenges. So I just think that the three of you, especially in the merge, just played such different games. And that's what I really like to see.
I also want to like kind of comment before we kind of get, we're still on the Jen vote. And Juliana, your big Spencer vote. I don't know if you guys remember, but Juliana voted Spencer out from all the confessionals we heard about Spencer being her big move. But also an underrated move from Sydney was, Jen would come to Sydney and be like, hey, we have to go Tom. Sydney, you voted with Tom. You actively chose to go against like this big vote split and go against Jen. And you voted Jen, and that was a very big move. And I feel like that gets swept under the rug just because not a lot of people were really aware of the numbers. Everybody was still focused on Ryan holding his idol. But that relationship of you voting to save Tom, I feel like transcended into day 3 and like really kept your position in the game. At that point in the game, what was your relationship like with Tom? Did you see like a future in the game with him? Is that why you made the decision?
Yeah, I felt like we talked all the time and I was really comfortable with him. I felt very trusting in him and I felt that he like reciprocated that trust. And so I definitely wanted to like continue playing by him. I don't remember when like we said, final 3 or something, but I just knew that I enjoyed playing with him. And I just didn't have as close a relationship with Jen because we've been on opposite tribes the whole time. So there was just like more pull for me to Tom, I think.
I think that's fair. And I also think, again, that was a very, like you made a lot of subtle moves in the merge that like really cemented your spot socially and then allowed you to kind of maneuver strategically. So there's a lot of like little things that we can point out like throughout the rest of this podcast. But Juliana, moving on to your big Spencer vote.
Yes.
What was it like organizing it for you? Because even editing it, it seemed very cut and dry. Like you're either with me and we're going for Spencer, or you're against me and you're voting for Bridget. Like, what was it like kind of navigating that round and getting, it seemed like everybody on board?
Yeah, I think I just watched Liam and Jen go. And like, I think in hindsight, I think I felt like more akin to them because they were a little bit more visible players. And Spencer wasn't a visible, like physical, I guess, player or whatever, like he was working with. And I mean, it was pointed out when you guys like chatted with him on the podcast that he was kind of working this like underdog group, right? And I saw that and I wasn't a part of that group, but I knew Spencer was masterminding it. So that's why I really started to go for him because I I said it in the show. Like, I watched Tyson in multiple seasons in the real show, and I was like, he's Tyson, and he will win if nobody stops him. Like, I was fully convinced. And so it was the last vote out of day 2. I think that like all my emotions about like what was happening for me outside of the game were hitting me all at once, because after we were done for the night, I went inside and I had a full mental breakdown about starting medical school. So I know that like on camera, I really came off as like, all of a sudden I got really aggressive about one thing. And it was because I like really wanted to put my foot down, and I really wanted that to happen because I felt like if Spencer had long enough to work with that underdog group, they would always vote with him. And if that big of an alliance formed, then we were all in danger. Like the like more visible players, I guess. So that's where I was coming from that vote. And when we watched Final Tribal back, I remember Sydney was like, well, everyone was thinking Spencer anyways. And I was so mad. Because
You could see it. You could see it in your face.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
so
you-
embarrassed.
And it's so funny to watch back now. Like, I just remember being like, I don't know what to do. Like, do I then say something else? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not starting that.
I would like agree. I mean, there wasn't a ton of convincing going on. Like, I mean, all you really had to do was pitch a case to be like for Spencer to go, and then like the alternative was Bridget. And I think Bridget was a little bit more socially aligned than maybe Spencer was. Spencer was playing only one angle of, you know, going all guys. And I feel like you and Bridget both were playing a different angle. Sydney was also in on this vote, trying to, you know, direct it to Spencer. But it seemed like you were like definitely taking the helm of the ship and having big, bold conversations in like groups of more than 2. So I feel like you can claim that, but again, like it a lot of it was very socially current. Like, I don't know, it was a movement. I felt like you kind of were the rallying voice for this Spencer vote out. And I think the next big vote out that we had, like Addison, Ryan, you play your idol, or you hold on to your idol yet again with the Addison vote out. You know, we've been here, we've done that. We know that Ryan has, you know, moved through that motion. And I feel like everybody was just kind of waking up on day 3 going like, oh yeah, that's how Ryan plays. It kind of forgot overnight. So they organized this vote to split on you and Kyle. And this round was, you know, really, really important because this is also when you and Juliana created your alliance, which, you know, I don't know if you guys also know that it lasted the rest of the season. We see them all the way to the finals.
Right.
Sydney, meanwhile, you are still on the Ryan train after he wanted to go to the end with you. You are back on the Ryan train of trying to flush his idol. What was your relationship like, I guess, going into day 3 with Juliana and Ryan? Because around final 5, we see you guys start to work together, or final 6. But going into day 3, what was your mindset and your viewpoint on both Juliana and Ryan, you know, in the game as players?
Well, like in terms of my relationships, I felt like I didn't have a super close relationship with anybody at that point, kind of. Like I felt pretty equal with everybody. So I didn't necessarily feel super close to either of them. But like we did have these out of game connections and like had worked really well together in the game so far. And like obviously I love them as people. So yeah, I felt like kind of good about that. I was very fearful of Juliana since like the very start. And so, but like I didn't know whether that meant I wanted to work with her or try to get her out. Like I was always kind of teeter-tottering between those. And then Ryan, yeah, I just want to get him out for a long time. And then it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it was a interesting dynamic I felt that you guys all had together. Ryan, you ended up playing your idol on that round. Juliana supposedly told you to play it. How
round?
much for the round that you voted out Kyle? So Kyle was the default vote, received 2 votes. All your votes were nullified. You played your idol 3rd time's the charm. 3 strikes, you're out. You played your idol and you were safe. Juliana told you to play it. Her and Claire were the only ones that voted Kyle that round. What was your mindset kind of after that? Because I know you started to find out that Juliana might have been a part of orchestrating that split vote. I guess like, did you trust her more? Like, did that kind of solidify your final like two together? Like, what was your relationship like at that point with Juliana?
Yeah, so I think on the last vote, I wanted to have Sydney. I wanted to be allied with before, and on the last vote, she like did not go with me, and I kind of got mad at her on confession. So then I tried it again next time with Juliana, and honestly, I don't know how much. Obviously, I trusted her with her telling me not to play the idol, but I think I would have played it either way. It definitely helped that she said that, and I could trust her more because she said that. But yeah, at that point, I wholeheartedly trusted her. But then when I heard about the split vote plan, and I confronted her about the Kyle vote, and she kind of gave me a half answer. I knew she was lying to me. Like lost a little trust, but at that point, everybody's lying. So
Juliana, did you consider voting with him or Bridget during the Kyle round?
So no, I don't think so at that point. But I remember going into like post that challenge, whoever won that, Tom won that challenge, right? And okay, I'm sorry. Matt is listening to this in the other room. I need to go tell him to either put in headphones because I can hear myself like feedback. Sorry.
It's okay. Matt, can you put in headphones? Yeah, Juliana, resume.
Okay. So anyways, I remember knowing or thinking like that everyone's gonna go for Ryan, and like I can't, for my game, no one can know that like I'm totally comfortable playing with him, and I want him in the game now because everybody knew going into the merge that I wanted him, out, and we had concocted that plan that failed. So I openly in the conversations I had with people, I like openly was like, yeah, like we can vote Ryan out, and we should definitely put 2 votes on somebody else, and like doing 2 versus 1 was to like also make sure that no one else that I was kind of aligned with at that point was going to go, like if other people in that group decided to start, a third name. So I knew that I was playing kind of both sides at that particular vote out, but I also felt like there was no way around it. I didn't have like a good way of convincing people, no, like let's keep Ryan around. Like I didn't know what to say. And I know we'll get to it later, but when Sydney at final 6, I think, was like, I feel really bad voting Ryan out this way. I'm like, that was the only time where I really thought Ryan was gone. And as soon as Ryan was gone, I was going to go. So Sydney, you totally saved my ass because I did not know how to like unconvince people ever. And in that particular time, like really saved both of us, which is funny.
Yes, that was so funny.
Before we jump too far ahead to that vote, let's get to 2 back-to-back votes that are infamous in our series now. Taylor gets voted out after Bridget drops a Bridget bomb, and right after that we get another Bridget bomb, and 2 of the 3 of you helped orchestrate her oust on that round. So I guess we'll start with Ryan. What was it like kind of that, that whole tribal council? You went from having a dual immunity with Tom to, maybe voting out Taylor. Like it was a kind of a complex vote. They were trying to maybe split, like get Juliana out at one point. But then Bridget drops this, bomb at tribal that she's going for Taylor. And then immediately we take your immunity away, you lose, and you're out in the open. What was your mindset at that tribal council?
Yeah, so I think before the Taylor vote, that kind of shows my social game. No one was really talking about Bridget. I didn't hear any of that. It was all pretty much Taylor, some Juliana. But then when I went up to Bridget, I said, "Yeah, there's a lot of people voting for you. I'm going to vote for you, but unless you do something for me." And she's like, "Okay, I'll do something." And Juliana was there. So like I gave her that ultimatum. She wasn't on the chopping block at all, I don't think, at that point. So yeah, then pretty easy vote for Taylor, I think. And then the next one after I lost, I figured that was a must win before the challenge. I didn't think of any out. If it just went right into voting, I think I was out. But
Yeah, I thought the same thing. From a viewer perspective, I thought, oh, they're not even going to get time to talk. Ryan doesn't have time to save himself. Juliana doesn't have time to step in to help him out. I was confident you were done.
Right, I was too. I mean, I would have, and even if we went to tribal council, I'm not sure what I would have said. But then first thing she does is speak up and say she's going for me, and it was pretty much a T-ball at that point. It was my only out, and I capitalized on it, I think. And Sydney helped. She jumped on the bandwagon, and everyone kind of realized she went back on her word, and people couldn't trust her at that point.
So, Sydney, the question for you, I guess, is how much of you speaking up at that tribal council, how much of that was like part of your strategy to maybe capitalize on, like kind of play an Uno reverse card for Bridget and like maybe own that move for yourself? And then how much of that was like you actively wanted to get Bridget out? You know, like, did you see a motive or did you just want Bridget out at that time?
I was thinking mostly about if Bridget and I were in the final three together. And I was just thinking about like what a phenomenal job she had done at the tribal councils. Like to speak up like that and to make bold statements is amazing. And I just knew that like the jury was going to eat that up, you know, as I would if I was on the jury. And so I was thinking about if Bridget and I are in the final two together, like she's going to single-handedly beat me. And I felt it was a possibility that the two of us were going to be together at the end because we had like worked close together. And so with that also being said, I became concerned that our relationship wasn't as solid as I thought it was, just because like the flip with Ryan happened. I figured that it could happen to me. And I did believe that like she would tell me ahead of time, like I'm flipping on you, but I thought that maybe she would flip on me eventually. I don't know.
I do think it was a good move. I mean, it's a brutal move. I feel bad for Bridget. Like,
yeah, it was really sad.
It was a tough oust, especially as a tough pill to swallow when you play big and you lose even bigger. Like it was a rough torch to snuff for me. But you guys went back to camp, and Ryan, you know, Juliana, you win the final 6 individual immunity challenge, finally get a win on your record. And now we are entering into finale territory. So we can start to discuss that. And then we have probably back to back from the Bridget Tribal Council now into this next Tribal Council. One of the craziest things that we have seen between Claire starting a live tribal to Ryan asking and receiving an idol from Brendan, back to another live tribal, all resulting in Tom going home. Ryan, before we get to you and where your head was at, Juliana, watching from the side, one of my favorite things to edit, because I wanted to focus on Brendan and I wanted to focus on Ryan, but your facial reactions that entire time were so funny to be able to kind of see what was going down. What was it like watching Brendan hand over his idol to Ryan?
I really thought that was kind of Claire's moment to like try to flip and either force us to tie or something. And you know, like I was expecting a move from Claire at some point. We're roommates and we're really close, and we had like, I think this unspoken, we never said it to each other, but it was kind of an unspoken, like, I'm not going to vote you out. You're not going to vote me out. Like, we're going to kind of like quietly work to make sure the other person doesn't get out until we absolutely have to vote that person out. But I really thought that we were going to be forced to like go to some kind of tie. I had no idea what Claire said to them, but I also knew at that time that Claire was probably closest with them, just like the three of us were closest in terms of like an alliance, I guess. So I remember like Claire getting up and I was like, oh my God, this is her move. It's happening. And I was comfortable. Like whatever damage happened, I felt confident enough like that I could at least navigate a final 5 situation and maybe keep myself in long enough to get to final 3. And if I lost, Ryan at that point, that was going to suck. But like there were few enough people left that I thought I was going to be okay. So when they all come and sat back down, I was like, all right, like if a tie happens, I don't know if Sydney would flip or I'm not going to flip. I'm not going to write Ryan's name down, but Sydney might flip. And so I just didn't know what was going to happen. And then like no part of whatever their conversation was like led me to believe that something like that was going to happen. So I was just shook. Like it was funny. And then I remember seeing like half the camera crew go like, like they were pissed. And then I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna sit here and keep watching because like everyone's reactions, even outside of the game, were really aggressive.
That round was wild. The formation of, the idol being handed over, Sydney forming this trio that we have in the final 3, Tom getting ousted, Claire creating a live tribal. It was a wild round. I think that there were a lot of questionable decisions made by multiple people. Sydney, you've listened. I said this is the round that I think you lost the game. I think this is the round you threw away your game, unfortunately. Sorry.
I beg to differ, and I want to be Sydney's champion on this round. I think, Sydney, you did a fantastic job of eyeing why Tom was in a he was in a better position than a lot of people in the game. I think your one miscalculation was how close Juliana and Ryan already were prior to that round. If this was the round and you got everybody to kind of like collectively go on Ryan, or to support Ryan, I think that would have paid off. Going for Tom at that point was a very, very good move.
I agree.
Argue though, and I want to see what your viewpoint is, because we kind of saw not just once, but also twice, kind of with Ryan when he offered you final 3, as well as Tom. When somebody offers you final 3, we kind of saw you saying like, why would you want to be in the final 3 with me? You think you can beat me. Has your viewpoint changed on that since? Do you think that's honestly a sign of trust, or do you think that is kind of more of a I want you in the final 3 because I don't see you on the same level as me?
I think it can be both. Like, I definitely think it depends who you're talking to. But I wish I wouldn't have had that attitude. I think that was like prideful a little bit and like insecure. And that was because like when I was thinking about who I wanted in my final 3, like that was kind of my motive was like, I don't want to be with a super strong person because I want to be with somebody who I think I can beat. So I think it can be both. But looking back, I wish that wouldn't have been how I looked at it. Because like, I mean, Juliana and Ryan promised each other final 3 and it worked out phenomenally for the 2 of them. So yeah, I wouldn't do that again. And even if they are looking at you as someone to beat, like take advantage of it. Like they want to help you get to the final 3. So yeah, I would change that.
Yeah, you kind of want to prove them wrong. This is why you want to take me, and this is why I'm going to beat you. So I don't think it was a bad move. And I think it kind of, I tried to put as much into the edit as possible on why you might be able to, because I think if you and Juliana switch places and it was just you and Ryan in the final, I think you have just as strong as an argument as Juliana does, at least against Ryan. You guys played a very similar, behind the scenes game, at least up to a point. And so I do think that you would be able to make a lot of counter arguments. I think it would still be a very close tribal council between you and Ryan, just as it was for Juliana and Ryan. So that's my take on it.
I think you definitely chose the fun route. And I think that your reasoning of, well, I want to be with people in the end who I think deserve to be here, and I would feel bad voting out people who deserve to be here, is definitely the fun route from a viewer perspective. Unfortunately, from a player perspective, I think it was a good move to take out Tom. I agree with Dom on that point, because I think Tom has a great case at Final Tribal. For me, I just think that the maybe not so great part of that decision was the creating a new final three with Juliana and Ryan.
See, I think that Sydney, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was also just part of your pitch, because going up to people and saying, "Hey guys, let's like save Ryan for the next couple rounds," like who's that going to land with? By kind of making it a little bit more fun and like, you know, that I think that was part of your pitch. And I don't know if that was the difficult line that I had to make when editing. Is Sydney here for fun? Is she here to just make good TV? Because up until maybe final six, you had a very, very concrete strategy and social game. And it did just seem that you switched gears. But I do think there was a lot of social and strategic capital that went into that decision. So if you want to clear the air, was it for fun or was it more like, was it for the game? Was it a pitch or was it part of just like, you know, here we are?
It was pretty much for fun. Like, I hate to say it, but like I had going into the game, oh my gosh, I was in it to win it, like from the start. Right. And like of the 20 people there, I knew a very small amount. And we get to the final six and like Ryan and Juliana are there, like two of the people that I have the closest connections with. And there's a chance that like we could be the final three together. That was just like, I didn't want to pass up that opportunity for like that memory. And also, I mean, they're the two best players in my opinion. And everybody in the final six was awesome, but like the way I view the game, they were the best two players. And so I just like wanted to see them in the final three so bad.
I will say, as much as it hurt my heart to lose Tom there, I do think that because you made that switch over and the three of you together created that new final three, I think we got, like I mentioned at the start of this recap, I think we got probably the three strongest players in the game as the final three. So I do appreciate that from a viewer perspective, and I do think that it was definitely the fun decision.
Mm-hmm. And Ryan, we had Juliana and Sydney kind of share their viewpoints. You sent out a Hail Mary asking for Brendan's idol. What was it like receiving it?
Yeah, that was a shocker for me. Before the tribal, I think I said to him, this was after I thought we had a pretty well-established plan to vote out Tom, and I was just looking for idols and talking to Brendan. I said, yeah, I'll let you have the opportunity to make a big play and give it to me. And then immediately after, Tom tells him that's the dumbest thing you could do, which is probably true. But yeah, that's what I said to him. And then you kind of said, you asked if I had any other questions. I asked him for it, and I thought it was going to be a simple no, and we were going to vote out Tom. That's kind of what I thought. I was pretty confident, but then he gave it to me, and I mean,
the rest is history.
Yeah, I think that kind of shows how much of an influence I had on the game. You know, like he thinks that giving me an idol will help him in the game. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he didn't just play it on you instead of physically giving it to you, but we all make decisions, and that was definitely a decision.
It was definitely one of them.
I thought it was so interesting that like I felt like everyone just constantly felt like they had to like prove themselves to Ryan over and over again. And I really think that like Brendan thought, oh, like, you know, maybe this will somehow win me favor with the jury. Like in some twisted way. Because maybe that was other people's experience that was also in the jury, is they felt like they need to win his favor, and then they didn't, and that's why they're sitting on the jury. I don't know.
I think last week the way I put it was Brendan probably at this point felt like, oh, I haven't really made any moves, and then with Ryan telling him, oh, this is an opportunity to make a move in front of the jury, Brendan felt like he had to do something. And I think this was the only thing that he had room to do, because nobody's voting Brendan. So he's not going to be able to like use the idol successfully on himself. So I guess in his mind, he's like, well, I need to make a move. So here's a move.
Also, I think if he would have talked to me more about it and like determined a plan, then maybe I could have worked with him. But we literally only had that one conversation, and then that was it. So I didn't feel much loyalty towards him.
Yeah. Our fan throughout the season, Valencia, said that she was yelling during the whole exchange. I feel like that was kind of a unanimous feeling from a lot of viewing parties. A lot of people were very confused on what was going on. And yeah, it definitely was a move. It was we don't
Yeah.
know where it's gonna land. I think it might be one of the lesser moves in our series history, but we will see how that plays out. But moving on, Final Five, you guys are all safe. Once you guys get to Final Five, it seems like your game to all three of your games to win, Claire's game to lose, and that brings us to Final Four. I feel like before we kind of get into Final Tribal, Juliana, do you want to touch on this? What was it like sending Claire home for you?
Like I already said, I knew that like we were kind of in agreement that we would only do it if we had to. And I think at that point, I hadn't made promises to Claire, and Claire didn't necessarily like have an agreement like I had with somebody else. And so that was kind of what ended up harming her. And I think she knew, like, I remember like without even a camera on us, I think we were like, well, we better go have a confessional about this for the TV. And like, like we are just ourselves around each other, but like kind of you're in the in-game mode. It's like, we need to go have this conversation like players. And then like, okay, yeah, now we're just going to chat about, what we're doing or how late we're going to be getting home or whatever. So there's not too much to say, I don't think, other than like, I mean, I was really bummed. And I felt bad. I was like, of course this would happen. But also I was really proud of the game that she played. Like watching it back, had no idea, you guys touched on it last week, how often and how much she had to work from the bottom. And she really she was dealt that card. Like, I feel like Claire would have played a different game if she had more room to choose, but I don't think she had room to choose her strategy. And like, Drew, you said it, like she would kind of just stand and absorb information. But like, she had to do that because she had to then end up working with someone, and that someone ended up being Ryan. And I didn't realize like what her perspective was on working with Ryan so much. It was kind of funny that she also was working with him almost as closely as I was, but Ryan and I had just made that, final three promise to each other. So, yeah, it was a bummer, but I think she understood, like, obviously there's no bad blood or anything.
Right. Ryan, that was also a relationship that really didn't translate to TV. You guys would have a lot of one-on-one productive conversations despite Claire voting for you a couple of times. I'm not sure what the number was, but it seemed like she was able to get herself back in your favor near the end of the game. Could you kind of recap quickly on what your relationship with Claire was like throughout the rest of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's pretty much non-existent for most of the game. I was trying to get information out of people. She wouldn't really say much. So in my mind, I didn't really have a close relationship with her until the end. And it's kind of a late bloomer. I think we trusted each other. I trusted her to give me good information, and I think I gave her good information. But again, it just came down to, I think Juliana and I had a closer relationship.
Mm-hmm. So going into the final three, you guys made it. You successfully were able to do what your significant others weren't able to do, make it all the way to the end on your first time, no less. But yeah, I kind of want to see where your guys' heads were at going into it. Sydney, what was your head like going into final three? Did you see yourself having a good case? Like, what was it like going into Final Tribal Council?
Yeah, I thought I had a decent case. I thought that I was the weakest of the three, but I didn't expect to be beaten that bad. But I mean, no, they were so great, and yeah, but I felt very good going in.
What about you, Ryan?
I was pretty confident. I think I played a very good game. I realized how I knew Juliana's game was a good one too, and she had a lot of allies on the jury. I was pretty confident that the jury would magically forgive me and just respect my game and vote for me just off that alone. But yeah, I think before the tribal, I was pretty sure I was going to win.
Yeah, it was an interesting take, because we saw kind of throughout the season that you were a little bit like overzealous with your confidence about like the jury, like it doesn't matter, like my game proves to be, you know, it is what it is. And on paper it looks very nice.
Mhm.
At any point, you know, during final tribal, did you kind of think like I might be having to explain a little bit harder, I might have to fight a little bit harder than I, you know, anticipated?
Yeah, I mean, we get into it. I think my opening statement was an apology to those I wronged. I think that was the biggest, or one of the few mistakes I made in the game. Obviously, I was trying to go from the view that final tribal, I was lying the whole game. Final tribal, I was being honest, and I wasted my one opportunity to share the game I played, apologizing. I wish I didn't do that. I'm glad I said that. It was important to me that people realize that. But yeah, I think that was a big downfall for me. And then yeah, Juliana just kind of outclassed me in the final tribal. She was well spoken, and just kind of her answers. Every answer she had was kind of loop back to her game, like a politician's answer. Whereas I don't think I did that great in the final tribal. I was pretty tired, and you know, she just really outclassed me at the end.
I actually think all three of you performed pretty well at Final Tribal. I think because the three of you all played such different games. Like I said, Sydney, you played a very social game. Ryan, you played a very aggressive, kind of strategic and physical game. And Juliana, your game was very, I can't think of a good word to describe it. Like very like sleek, I guess, like very clean. Not sneaky, but like just very clean game. And because you all played so differently, I think you were all able to picture yourselves very great, very good at Final Tribal Council. And I think that I personally, as a viewer, now mind you, I wasn't on the jury and didn't get to see any of the gameplay, but I personally was like, yeah, it could go to any of them because they all played such different games and they all were such strong players.
Mm-hmm. So from each of you, I kind of want to know, what was there a juror that you were most nervous to talk to? So Juliana, was there one that you were nervous about?
I think I was just most nervous about Spencer because I was curious like whether he was gonna ask me a really pointed question or not. But I guess I felt like I explained. I mean, I guess what he asked ended up being pointed because I think he assumed that my response was going to be about him. But I think I explained it okay. And I know in the end, like, I think he voted for Ryan. But I mean, I sat in the final three and really thought Ryan was going to win. Like, I felt like me taking him as my, like, you know, one alliance. I, like, wanted to stay true to that. I wasn't going to, you know, take Claire over him. But that would have been maybe the decision that I, you know, made in a show worth $1 million. I don't know. Like, I don't know what headspace I would have been in if like those circumstances were a little bit more heightened. But I really sat there and just like kind of had fun answering the questions because like I knew that I could like talk myself into like, you know, I really did like talk in a loop and then I ended with the question, right? But I mean, like I'm taught to do that in medical school. I think that kind of helped me a little bit going through like the whole interview season of medical school, like leading up to that. That's
I think you did good.
So I knew I had one vote and I knew that vote would be Claire. But outside of that, like I knew I'd have some convincing to do, but I really like I sat there and I was like, Ryan's gonna win this. So
Sydney, what about you? Any bad blood you were nervous about?
I guess I was like most nervous and sad to talk to Bridget just because like I know that if the roles were reversed, like I would have been very hurt by what happened as well. Like it's impossible not to take that personally. So I was pretty sad about that. But yeah, I mean she did good.
Ryan, anybody?
Honestly, not really. I mean, I feel like shared with Bridget what I was thinking before our question even. So anything she said, I was pretty much prepared for. I will say I would like to challenge Liam's thought that I got lucky. I think honestly the only lucky thing I got was Bridget saying that in that council.
I think it was lucky that Brendan was willing to give you his idol, maybe, but I think that also reflects you had to put in social work for that to happen. But I do think that was a little bit lucky that Brendan was actively looking to do something silly.
I think overall this season was very much a behind the scenes game. You guys all, had your cards close to your chest, and the only time you would rarely show them would be in a confessional. And sometimes even in your confessionals, you wouldn't even show them. And I'd have to look 3 episodes ahead and see where, your heads were at and, work accordingly. But this season, for the most part, was very behind the scenes work. And on the surface, from a host perspective and from a jury perspective, from a crew perspective, we were all like, how did Ryan end up in the end? And we see like how Sydney and Juliana assisted you in getting to the end. But we also get to see, Ryan, the skill and the work that you put in to create the chaos. I mean, just you saying like, yeah, I stirred the pot a little bit. I created a little chaos. My spiders came back a little bit. You really like played down the effect that you had on these votes. You would actively go to somebody and you would be like Addison, Bridget, anybody that was on the chopping block and be like, yeah, I heard your name a ton. You want to go for somebody else? And then like work accordingly with that. And like that, I feel like was very behind the scenes that not a lot of people saw. And all they saw was a quote unquote lucky read that you held your idol. So I do think for everybody sitting in this final 3, a lot of things can be perceived as lucky, but there is so much skill.
Yep.
3 of you and, Claire and Tom and a lot of other players in this game that worked hard behind the scenes and made it so hard for me to be able to edit for how complex and, strategy was this season, as well as the social dynamics. Like you guys knocked it out of the park. And even on like a, 39-day season of Survivor, I think it would be hard to articulate at a final tribal council every single move that you would make. And there was just so many little small details to all 3 of your games that contributed to why you deserve to win, that I wouldn't knock any one of you for, a bad final tribal. You guys all killed it for everything that they had. And I think it was just kind of left up to the jury on how they perceived it. I don't know if anybody regrets their vote or whatever, but we'll leave that up to a future season of Survivor to see how that would play out. Or
I do have one question about Final Tribal. So in the event that the votes were read and it was a 5-5 tie, 5-5-0, Sydney, you would have had to break that tie, assuming Dom keeps the same rules as CBS. Who would you have voted for out of Juliana and Ryan?
Oh, that's how it works. I would have voted for Juliana, I think.
Dang.
I feel like, yeah, I would have.
Wow. Well, there you have it, guys. Breaking news, Juliana would be winner regardless. Ryan, we have a question from the comments section. Watching back the season, should you have won as a thrown into the world of Survivor now? Do you think that you should have won?
I believe so. I mean, I don't want to take away from Juliana's game, but I think I played an impressive game. And like I said, or like you guys said, our games were totally different. And in the end, Juliana impressed the jury more. So I guess probably not now that I think about it. But I do think I would have voted for myself.
I remember hosting, and even throughout the season editing, I remember going, I don't know who I'd vote for at the end. Like literally, like it would have to be circumstantial, how dirty you guys got me out of the game, like how the rest of the season played out. If I was on the jury, you guys all played amazing. Like I would not know who to vote for, even like sitting on the sidelines. Like I don't know what I would say. But another question from the comment section for both Sydney and Ryan. Do either of you see a path you could have taken to win after watching the season back? Sydney, do you think that there was a path for you to win had you watched the season back? Anything?
Like maybe I think I maybe would have had a slightly better chance of beating Brendan or Claire, but it wouldn't have been easy to get Ryan and Juliana out. So that like wouldn't have been able to happen really, I don't think. And I mean, even Brendan and Claire have like such unique gameplays that probably a lot of people on the jury related to. And so, I mean, there's no telling if I would have won.
Ryan, what about you?
Yeah, I think if I don't know, I'm thinking if I had a better final tribal, I could have potentially won. But also the Brendan vote, when I had the idol, it was me, Claire, Sydney, Juliana, and Brendan. I debated a lot going back on Juliana. I think I knew she was the best player at the time, and had I done that, I think I potentially, if I made it to the final, I definitely think I would have won. But yeah, we had our established relationship. Juliana did a great job of forming that, and yeah, I don't think I would backstab her for this.
For $100, $150 Venmo.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if I could trust Brendan to play with me. So
that's fair. Follow-up question. And Juliana, do you think this was your perfect game, or is there a path you could have taken to win it even more convincingly?
That's a great question. I'm not sure, because like part of me would say like I think what could have been more convincing is having more immunity challenge wins, but I also think that places a larger target on your back if you win them early. And so if I won, 4 instead of 2, I feel like any other time I didn't win, like I don't blame, like I remember the moment that Sydney and I kind of stopped talking to each other around like when the girls kind of had to go for each other. And I knew why she wasn't talking to me, but like I wasn't hurt by it. I think I think there would have been a more compelling argument at that point to get me out if I had actually won an immunity challenge at that point, but I hadn't. So I think the timing of my immunity challenges were the right time. I guess maybe winning out and like winning the last 3 could have helped. Like, and then I really would have, I think, sealed the deal. But I don't think up until the very end I would have handled anything differently, because even pre-merge, like I really was trying to be conscious of my competitiveness, and I really thought that would be my flaw in the game early on, would be like showing that too early. So I guess it's like asterisk winning more immunity challenges would be my answer to that.
I think all around, like I've been saying, like all 3 of you guys, I mean, for looking back and seeing like, oh, I might have done this, you're going to be thinking that for a little bit. But just know that like every single move that you made was so fun to watch, whether it paid off or it didn't. Like you made a move, and that's a lot more than a lot of people can say, is they played Survivor, they made moves, they were active in the season. You guys were the top 3 out of all the power rankings throughout the entire season. I think Juliana, you got first, Ryan got second, Sydney, you were third. And it was just very fitting. I feel like everybody out of this 3 came to play. You guys targeted each other at the right times. It either worked out or it didn't. And it was just so poetic to see you guys all come together at the end and share that moment together. And it was so fun to be able to watch the train rolling by, everybody cheering. Like it was an absolute blast to have you guys on the show and doing that. We're approaching an hour and 30 minutes. And so, Drew, if it's okay with you, let's transition into the final little segment that we did. Last week, we had our MVP, the most valuable player of the season. Everybody throughout the season on the podcast has been getting you guys to that power player position that you, all 3 of you hold the top 3 spot for. And let's give it back a little bit. So I want to give kudos where kudos are deserved. If you guys want to say who your MVP of the season was. We'll include Claire all the way down to Kristen, if you so choose to pick Kristen, on who played the best game, was the most entertaining, all the above, whatever you consider MVP. I would love to hear your opinion on, highlight somebody that got you to where you were at or made the season more enjoyable to watch. Sydney, let's start with you.
I would say Tom. I mean, he was so fun to watch. I think I voted for him as like best confessionals. But he was so fun to watch, and watching him like learn how to play Survivor was hilarious. And then he was he was so nice to everyone and made friends with everybody. And then the people that he like made enemies and went against was so entertaining. And I think that played a lot into like his strategy. And then he did so well at the challenges. Like I really think he could have won everything.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, what about you?
Gonna have to agree. That's Tom. He was the most entertaining, I thought. His game was like a low-key game. It was perfect. I think he honestly got screwed a little bit by being a challenge beast. I think if he didn't win those, less spotlight on him, and he could have snuck into the final three. And he's got charisma. He'd make a great case at the final tribal. I think it's got to be Tom for me.
Let's also remember that you were also part of one of his challenge beast wins, Ryan.
No. That's all Tom.
Juliana, what about you?
I think in terms of like entertainment as well as like who I feel like I have two answers, but who I felt like I like learned from as the game progressed was Jen. The fact that she had played before, like I knew already put this like target on her back, but like starting on a tribe with her, watching her navigate when she swapped and then what happened in the merge, even though she went out second, like watching what she did really helped me form like, okay, that didn't work for her. I can't do that, And so I think I was doing that a lot. I was happy that she was around. She was a really physical player in our team challenges. And just like was totally a leader. And she definitely committed to that role. And that was a role that like, I didn't want to accidentally fall into. So it was really interesting to like watch what like maybe were the shoes that I thought I could end up in. And then to like learn immediately from that I kind of need to like make some changes as I go. So like Jen's my answer from like, I think a strategy and like confessional standpoint. But I was also thinking about Spencer just because like playing with Spencer was like, again, like Tyson. And Tyson's one of like my favorite real Survivor players. So
good taste.
Yeah. Drew, do you want to ask any final questions for our final three before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think the questions that I ask every week to the people who join us, first of all, each of you, I know you made it all the way to the end. Juliana, you won. Would you play again?
Yes, definitely. I would be very nervous too, but like I totally would just for like the memories. It was just such a fun atmosphere, and I know we've talked about it so much, but just like all the memories that we have coming out of it and the fact it's on YouTube forever and we can show our future kids and all that, like all of that's just so fun. So I would absolutely play again. And if it were ever like a Dearborn versus Grand Rapids, I would be very nervous.
Wow. Ryan?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a great experience. I'd want to play a different game. Try to be a little bit more honorable, but we'll see what happens.
Sydney, what about you?
I feel exactly the same as Juliana. It makes me so nervous to think about. I would, but like I also was an emotional wreck after this, like replaying every minute in my head and like the people. Yeah, I don't know, but I would just maybe take it a little bit like more lighthearted.
Yeah. And then the other question that I ask, that I've been asking recently, again, the three of you made it all the way to the end. What would be your advice for future players of Survivor Grand Rapids? I'll start with Sydney this time.
Like don't discount anyone in terms of like having a relationship with them. Like everybody brings something to the table and everybody can really help you out in some way.
Ryan?
I would say try to play your game, but you gotta be able to adapt to the cards that you're dealt. and just quick thinking and adaptability.
Juliana, as the winner, I'm expecting good advice.
I think think about who you are in a regular social situation and identify your flaw, and then be really just conscious of that, as you move throughout the game. I talked about it already, but I think that really helped me get to the end. So I think more than anything else, be really self-aware as much as you can. And then kind of going off of what Ryan said, be able to then adapt from there, of know your weak point, and definitely make sure that you're, aligning people who are willing to keep you around, and maybe hide that weak point a little bit.
Great advice. I guess we'll see if the players of potential next season will follow that advice.
I just got a text from Matt that Matt said that he is he's accepting appointments for trainer. He's going to be a trainer for next season. So if anybody wants to take him up on that, let me know. We can get you his information, since he did such a great job this season training Juliana.
We can do Island of the Idols, but it's Matt and Juliana.
Oh, Matt and Charlie. We'll do Matt and Charlie. Let's see who can come out on top with that. But all three of you guys, I have texted you guys, I've talked to you guys individually, and I have expressed everything about how grateful I am, not just for you guys coming out and playing, but also to have you guys be here, part of this legacy, part of this journey that, Matt, Charlie, Alyssa started with me, 6 years ago almost. But it's been such an honor to be able to have you guys play and go throughout this entire season all the way to the end. And, Juliana come out on top. Ryan and Sydney play an amazing game throughout the entire time. I think it's a testament to the friendships that we've built throughout the years, the bonds that we've made, but also how we're still able to come together and put on something really cool. You guys can be going at each other, back and forth, but at the end of the day, when the torches are all snuffed, we'll all be at each other's weddings accordingly. It's going to be so special to be able to look back on and be able to watch. And so while I've been signing off individually, praising everybody, I, am just singing your praises as much as possible. I appreciate all three of you coming out and playing and giving it your all and taking the chance on me and, everybody else to put this on. So I appreciate everything that you guys have done and looking forward to what we're able to do in the future. So appreciate you guys.
We appreciate you, Dom.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Awesome
Dom,
decision to play.
it's been a great season, Dom. Thank you so much for the work that you put in to put on the season and to, get us together every week for this podcast. Sydney, Ryan, and Juliana, you guys were a lot of fun to watch. I look forward to a potential returning season, maybe seeing the three of you play again, see what else you guys have got up your sleeves.
Yeah. And Drew, I couldn't have done this without you. I mean, the podcast weekly and you staying, honestly, a lot of your opinions influenced how I was editing the season. So it was so fun to
That's terrifying because
see what was going on. If you think Ryan's in trouble, I'm going to make it look like Ryan's in a little more trouble. So it was so much fun to be able to talk this through with somebody who hasn't seen this before. I've edited, seasons 1 through 4 as, everybody that watched it basically knew what was happening. So this was a fun time to be able to see not just my Grand Rapids community come together, but also the Detroit and Cincinnati communities come together and everybody else outside the show come together. Valencia has been an absolute champ. She just noted in the comments to everyone as a new viewer to the show, the cast made me a fan. I was excited to watch every episode and the recaps. She appreciates everybody. We appreciate you and everybody else who had tuned in week to week and gave us all a chance to be able to, share our story from this last summer. And with that, I believe our Survivor Grand Rapids Fresh Meat Press Tour is officially over. Until potentially next season, we'll be signing off, maybe doing some Survivor Dearborn recaps here and there if we're able to get a crew together. For those who have, watched Survivor Grand Rapids Fresh Meat, feel free to tune in and watch our OG series, Survivor Dearborn. Seasons 1 through 4, those are an absolute blast. They're a little bit rougher in quality than what you may be used to from us producing, but it honestly made us who we are today. So if you want to check out our history, go for it. But without further ado, Make sure you subscribe on Survivor Grand Rapids YouTube, all our social media, to be able to see all the other content that we have coming out. We still have a Ponderosa videos coming out, as well as finding some fun after season things that we've done. But again, thank you guys all for joining tonight. Hope you have a great rest of your Monday. And for Live Reality Games community, we'll see you next time. Good night.
Good night.
Nice.